yeah, then I'll be able to kind of show you guys where, because I can show you guys exactly where you're going wrong. Because so far, I think only one person has really caught it. Okay, so we've got a. Just give me a moment. Okay, I was just responding to one of the students. I think it's a student in your class. Okay, cool. So, what we are looking at is our rubric. So, it requires you, so AO1 requires you to have a sophisticated understanding of the text, meaning, context, and audience. So, some of you have come to me and said, but you think your understanding of the text is sophisticated. When in reality, you have said things like, in this assignment, you have said things like, the audience is billionaires. Billionaires do not get advertised to. Like, billionaires come to the shop doesn't try to reach out to the billionaire. However, you could be, so you said that the audience was billionaires because billionaires are, because the thing mentions that it says Singapore is the playground of billionaires or something. However, this is not what it is doing. By saying that Singapore is the playground of billionaires, it is appealing to the rich people who want to feel super rich, and it is appealing to the middle class people who want their opportunity to live a lavish lifestyle. But they have probably saved up for a very long time to be able to do this. Okay? So that is like how you need to explore your audience. You need to have a sophisticated understanding of your audience, and you need to take that sophisticated understanding right through your text. Okay? And then you need insightful reference to characteristic features. So something like they use headings to make it easier to read. That could be true for any text.
So
I want things that are specific to this text. Analyze this text in particular. So, for instance, they use the heading Gateway to Southeast Asia. One of you mentioned that the gateway to Southeast Asia was like a heavenly gate, which I thought was quite insightful. I don't totally agree with it. I wouldn't have said it myself. However, I thought that that interpretation was quite interesting, and saying that and connecting that idea with how this seems to be this they have written this in a way that it seems like this once in a lifetime opportunity. They've written it in a way that makes it seem like you have not lived unless you have done this thing. You have not lived the high life if you have not done this thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I would argue that something like the gateway to Asia doesn't really invoke that sense in me. It's kind of like the start of an adventure,
That's
not really a.
that's also my interpretation of it. However, because I'm marking a text analysis, if you give me your interpretation and you properly back it up with evidence, then I can accept it. So, for instance, my interpretation is that saying that it is a gateway to Southeast Asia, so a gateway implies that there are a limited amount of ways that you can actually get into Southeast Asia. And this is your gateway, which is going to open up a whole new world. And that would be my interpretation of a gateway to Southeast Asia. Because they then go on to speak about these things that the Western world, because it is really aimed at the Western world, that the Western world doesn't really have a context for, and doesn't, it seems exotic. So they have kind of exoticized Southeast Asia
Really?
in order to get not exoticized in a problematic way. You get exoticized in a problematic way, and you get exoticized just, oh my gosh, we're so great. So the reason I say that they've exoticized it by talking about Hindu temples. Imagine, like, yeah, so by talking about Hindu temples and things like that, they have spoken about this otherworldly experience. Whereas in the Western world, there are a lot of Hindu temples. There's a lot, like, it's all over the place. So, yeah.
But I mean, it's kind of a bad thing for us, for South Africa, because we're quite a diverse country ourselves. So when I hear like exoticizing Southeast Asia, like Natal is an Indian, it's pretty much the Indian capital of the world outside of India. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't feel that exoticism that you speak of, because like I know a lot of stuff when it comes to that kind of thing. So I suppose.
So
I suppose it's a bit different.
What I'm saying is that they are trying to make it seem as a unique experience. So they are trying to make it seem otherworldly, different to what people are used to.
Oh yes, I keep on forgetting that the main audience is Westerners. See, I'm seeing this from my point of view. If I was reading the advert, okay, sorry, that's mine.
Because, like, Africa isn't like so much the West. I mean, we are influenced by the West, but Africa is Africa. And I mean, South Africa has its own vibe completely. But I mean, imagine an American reading this. Or a European. I don't know about Europeans, but yeah, probably. So it has some insightful reference to characteristic features. So it's taking the characteristic features and it's saying something insightful about them. Okay? Now, many of you said something about the characteristic features, but you reference it. It was a clear reference. Okay? Some of you made a limited reference to the characteristic features. Now, what do we mean by characteristic features? We are looking at AO1 at demonstrating and understanding a wide variety of texts. Okay? Yeah?
It's just the different types of text, like the text convention. So, like
Yes.
ads are trying to appeal to an audience. Narrative essay is trying to tell a story.
So, because of that, we are looking at how has this text specifically, what are the characteristic features of this text? Number one, that are unique, and number two, that are similar to all types of advertising. And how have they achieved this? What have they done to actually achieve these to have these characteristic features? So yeah.
Oh, sorry. So then I might be thinking about this wrong. So AO1 is like your understanding of that convention. And then do you compare that convention to its contemporaries, or do you just try and keep it to itself, like comparing it to itself and not other types of that?
You can briefly compare it to its contemporaries. So you can say, so some of you said that this is a long form advert, which is different to all other adverts because no other adverts are long form, which is incorrect. Okay? So that would be an incorrect reference to characteristic features because you do get long form adverts. So if you're going to compare it, you need to at least compare it correctly. Because you do get different types of adverts. You get adverts that have like no words and it's just a picture. And you get adverts that are short form, and you get long form adverts. And so understanding that. Some people said that, or maybe one or two people said that the audience is anyone who goes onto that website. But I make the argument that even a child can go onto that website and the child is not the intended audience. For instance, with my marketing, I do my marketing for my business, and I have a specific audience in mind. And I don't even bother with the other people. I don't care whether they like my piece. I want those people because those are my ideal audience. Some of you said that because it's an advert, we want the audience to be as broad as possible, so the audience is absolutely anyone. The reason why that is incorrect is because are you really appealing to people who are living off minimum wage? From paycheck to paycheck? No, that's not what they're trying to do. Do you understand? So you need to, if you're talking about your audience, you need to speak about how these characteristic features are used to speak to a specific audience, to a specific context, and it has a specific meaning. Okay? And so I want something insightful. I want something sophisticated. Most of you couldn't get past this clear place, the level 3. Because you did refer to characteristic features, but it was by no means insightful. It was very basic. If your whole analysis is about, okay, they do this because that makes it easier for the audience to read, it's, I don't know, like, that is super basic and doesn't actually analyze anything, because not everything that they do is to make it easier for the audience to read. In my lessons, I do certain things to make it easier for you to connect with what I'm saying and stuff like that. But not everything I'm saying is so that it's easy for you to understand. I need to also get my point across. Does that make sense? I'm not constantly thinking about trying to keep your attention. There are times when I need to make a point whether your attention is with me or not. There is a point that I need to make. Does that make sense? So,
yes, sir.
Then if we look at AO3, and this links into AO3, this is to analyze the ways in which the writers and speakers' choices of form, structure, and language produce meaning and style. Okay. So what the writers and the speakers have done is they have chosen a specific way of writing or speaking to get the message across. Okay? And so, number one, this is based on their message. So how have they elaborated on their message? How have they created a message? Okay? And how have they created style? So, for instance, one of the headings in the piece. Does anyone have the piece in front of them so you can read me the subheadings? I can't exactly remember the subheadings now.
Yeah.
Can you read me the subheadings quick?
I'm finding it as well.
Okay.
So the subheading.
Yeah. So there are a couple of subheadings. What are the subheadings? There's one that there's one in particular that I'd like to talk about.
Let me think. The multicultural Mecca. Is that the one?
No.
Amen. Live the glam life. India transport.
Live the glam life. Okay. So specifically, live the glam life. Now, a couple of things have been done there. Okay. So glamorous has been shortened to glam. Okay. Now, doing that makes it a little bit less formal, but what it also does is it makes it seem like you are out with your friends. You're talking about being glam, and there's this idea of glamour, and it almost seems it's very attractional. It makes the reader want to experience that that bit of luxury, okay? And it's about being glamorous. It's about being out there, okay? Yeah?
Would you not also say that by saying live the glam life, it's also kind of being hip and cool and attracting people?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are attracted to like popular stuff. Like using popular words can help.
Absolutely.
Sorry, are you?
Yeah?
I also feel like it resonates with a lot of younger people who are thinking about traveling. So they could think, oh, the glam life. I want to live that. I want to post it to my Instagram story. I want to be glam. I want to be cool. You know?
Yeah. So one of you said that the audience was people who are like in their mid-20s. And I mean, that may be part of the audience, but saying that it is limited to people in their mid-20s, I think is a little bit too specific. Because many people in their mid-20s are just getting started with life and don't have money for an international holiday. Do you understand? So, yeah, and so we can explore that. Okay, so if we look at this, this is where most of you landed. Some of you landed here, and one of you landed here. So analysis is clear, coherent, and well structured. Okay, very important. I want good structure. Some of you, while structuring your essays, were literally just spotting a feature and just writing a feature, and then when you think you've got too many words in a paragraph, you'd move to the next paragraph. And that is honestly like, firstly, it's very hard to follow because I'm trying to see, okay, well, what is the overall point that you're making? Because each of these things that you're looking at, you need to be zooming in and seeing, okay, this specific word has this impact on the text, and on it relates to the text in this way or whatever. And then you also need to say, okay, well, the overall text has these specific features, like these specific like language is used in this specific way throughout the whole text, and you need to have that, and that would fall under detailed if you've got both types of analysis. Okay? But then you also it needs to be coherent. It needs to be easy for me to follow. So if you're just going from thought to thought, and I have to reread your paragraph 3 or 4 times to understand what you're talking about, I want you to explore the things. I want you to explain it to me. Explain your thinking process. Sometimes what you guys are doing is, like in maths where you will not get any marks because, it might be out of 5 and then you'd get like 1 mark because all you did was write the answer instead of showing you working out. Some of you just write the answer instead of showing you working out, and so I don't know whether you fully understand it. Does that make sense? Then the next one is appropriate selection of elements of form, structure, and language for analysis. What's wrong? So the next one we look at is our selection of elements of form, structure, and language for analysis. Now, some of you chose very basic things to analyze. Like you might have analyzed sentence lengths, whether it's a compound sentence or you say they used many compound sentences. And then you give me some random reason why they used many compound sentences, like compound sentences give more information, and so by giving more information it creates a clearer picture for the audience. That is very basic, kind of boring. I want something insightful. I want something insightful. Okay? I want you to find the elements of form, structure, and language that are unique, that are interesting. Okay? For instance, you might talk about the syntax of a specific sentence and the effect of having the verb in that place instead of having the verb in a different place. You might notice that at one point they say something in passive voice. And why would they have it in passive voice when the rest of the passage is spoken in active voice? And so you could explore that and what effect that has on the audience. So for instance, passive voice, not in this text really, but passive voice might be used to make a sentence seem less confrontational. Does that make sense? So if we're looking at our elements of form, structure, and language, you need to find something interesting. And in your exam that you're going to be writing, I need you to be finding interesting things. Okay. The next thing we look at is our awareness of the writer's stylistic choices, including how style relates to audience and shapes meaning. Now, many of you just miss this completely. The writer made specific choices, okay? And the writer wrote in a specific way. Yesterday I had to write a very harsh sounding message by still sounding professional. And I set clear boundaries. And the reason that, and if you had analyzed my writing, you would see, okay, well, this is a point that I'm setting a boundary and I'm being firm. However, I'm still being kind. Okay? And you would ask yourself, okay, now why am I doing that? What words am I specifically using to do that? And why am I using those words, and what effect does that have? Does that make sense? And this is how we look at how style relates to audience and shapes meaning. So the different components of style are similar to all the other things we're looking at. They are... So when I'm looking at style, I'm looking at how the text is coming across, how relatable the text is. I'm looking at the overall text as well. So sometimes what happens is you guys look at these elements of form, structure, and language, and you don't relate it to the overall text, to the overall style of advert. How does it work with that style of advertising? That style of advertising, one or two of you mentioned, and it was very good, that this piece is looking at what did you say? I'm just thinking. One or two of you mentioned that this piece is looking at okay, I forgot. But you need to link it to the overall style. I'm just trying to think. Oh, okay, how they only mention the positive sides of Asia, and how it's almost this advert for how Asia is worth visiting. And they've done this using these different elements of form, structure, and language. So you have been given the elements of form, structure, and language. Okay? You need to be able to see not only what each of these elements mean on their own, but you need to understand the effect that they have on the overall text. And I cannot stress this enough. It has to link back to the overall text. Okay. Some of you are writing really bad little conclusions. Rather leave out the conclusion than writing a silly conclusion. Okay, the conclusion isn't that important. As long as you are exploring the elements of form, structure, and language, how they are producing meaning, and how they are creating a style. Because each of these elements are working together, and as they work together, they are producing something specific, and it is coherent throughout the whole piece. And it also, these elements of form, structure, and language also produce meaning. So we are looking for how they are shaping the meaning. Our last thing we're looking for is whether you're using appropriate language to link evidence with explanatory comments. To do this, you need to have a good understanding of your terminology. Some people spoke about how the advert used logos and pathos, I think. Logos and pathos, with absolutely no explanation given. I cannot credit that in any way. That is just a throwaway point that you've made. I can't credit that. Because unless you tell me in what way it has made use of logos and pathos, it means nothing. You need to use the right language to link your evidence, make sure that you've got evidence that you're linking to your explanatory comments. So some of you will explain something without actually using evidence. That is a problem. Some people will give me evidence without actually explaining how it links to, you will explain the point without showing me evidence, or you will show me, you will make like a point and then you will give a quote to back that up, but you won't actually explain using the correct terminology how they connect with each other. Does that make sense? Okay. I feel like I have now said a lot. Okay. So the difference between these different levels are, this one is sophisticated, this one is detailed, this one is clear, this one is limited. Oh wait, no, that's the wrong one. Yeah, this one is limited, and this one is basic. Okay. So as I go through and I mark you things, I might be like, this is basic. Ask yourself, is this basic? Is this interesting? While you're writing it. You're wasting your time writing about unnecessary things. Look for something unique in the passage. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, are you guys writing 1 or 2 papers tomorrow? You're only writing 1 paper tomorrow, hey?
Well, I'm not too sure.
Like, I don't know if they're both scheduled for tomorrow. I know one is scheduled for tomorrow, and I thought that would be your paper 1. So your paper 1 is going to be, your first question of your paper 1 is obviously your shorter directed writing. So you're going to have a passage, and then you need to write like 100 to 150 words, where you are, it's like that one you guys did on, I don't know, you guys wrote, I can't remember, you guys wrote the letter or something? Did you guys do the Notre Dame one?
Oh, yes, the Notre Dame.
Okay, so the Notre Dame one, so you have the letter, you had a newspaper article, and then you had to write a letter. So something you might want to look at before your exam tomorrow is go to your textbook, go look up text conventions. It's in your textbook. So it's not really going to be called text conventions. You're going to see it in the table of contents as something like, it's probably just going to talk about the different things. So it might say speech writing or something like that. And so you need to go look at speeches, you need to go look at reviews, you need to go look at how to write a report, things like that. Go look at the conventions of those, okay? And then you will need to write a comparative analysis. Now, a comparative analysis works pretty much of a similar rubric, but they're looking for a good comparative analysis. So they're not just wanting an analysis that is detailed, they want a comparative analysis that is detailed. So what is the difference? A comparative analysis, you don't take the one and look at it completely, and then take the other one and look at it completely. You are looking at specific elements. So you might notice that something the texts have in common is that they have a common audience. And then you're going to write something about how they use language in their language form and structure in their specific ways to speak to the same audience. And how, while they're speaking to the same audience, there are going to be differences in this language form and structure. And you're going to explore that. You're also going to be exploring the difference in their context, the difference in their meaning, the difference in the tone, the difference in all the elements of style. You're exploring the differences and similarities, and you're doing it side by side. Does that make sense? Side by side does not mean I want you to draw a table. It means I want you to write an essay where you are exploring, you are discussing each thing. So this is a compare and contrast essay. Okay. Yes.
Must you end off with a conclusion on your comparison, or can we just leave the two separate things?
What do you mean?
So the only real way I can describe this is in business. Like in business, you have to give a definition, and then you give your analysis, and then after that analysis, you come to your conclusion and say, "Oh, Ava should hire this person instead of that person because of her qualities."
Okay,
that she had.
don't do that. This is not a business essay. Your conclusion should not end up with your opinion of which one is better. Okay? Your conclusion should end up with, if you write a conclusion, which you don't always have time for, if you write a conclusion, you should be writing about basically creating a summary of how they are similar and how they are different, but it's not essential. Okay? I need you to, like, some of you got really bad marks because you wrote a review. You basically reviewed the text and told me that they did something well and that they did something badly. That is not what we're doing here. You are not evaluating them for how effective they were. You are analyzing how they used language, form, and structure to achieve their purpose. Does that make sense? So I can't remember. You would see on the notes that I sent you when I was marking, I would have sent you notes on, for instance, specifically with this text analysis, I would have sent you notes on the fact that your text analysis is is written as a review. You should not be writing a review. So then your question 1B is going to be your comparative analysis, and then for whenever you are doing your paper 2 starts with like also directed writing. They tell you kind of what you should write about, and then question 1B is going to be a reflective commentary, which is basically like a text analysis, but like a text analysis of your own work. And what makes it different to a text analysis is firstly that it's shorter, but secondly, you don't have to mention as many things, but secondly, you get to explore for yourself why you made the decisions that you made. And you're basically explaining to the moderator, well, to the examiner, why you made the decisions that you made and what effect those decisions had on your overall text, on the overall text that you wrote. Does that make sense?
Yeah, is this for the comparative analysis? Sorry, I went to the back.
This is for paper 2, question 1B. So paper 2, question 1B is a reflective commentary. Okay?
Alright, very cool.
So it's pretty similar to this type of analysis, but it's called a reflective commentary. And you are allowed to say in my text, in the text I wrote, but you don't have to say the author did this. You can say I did this. Okay. You can also... Yes, something else I wanted to mention is that all literature, so you wouldn't say I did this, you say I do this. Because all literature is spoken about in present tense. That's something I noticed. Something you write, if you are analyzing the thing, you analyze it in present tense, not in past tense. Does that make sense?
Is it because you just wrote it that you write it in present tense?
All literature is spoken about in past tense. If I speak about 1984, I say George Orwell writes, not wrote. Does that make sense?
I mean, it makes sense, but it also doesn't make sense because, I mean,
It's cool.
you think.
Because the literature still exists and therefore it is present. That's how I think of it, but it's called literary present tense. And it's just a thing. Okay.
I see. Okay, cool. That makes more sense.
So that you need to look at, and then section B of your paper 2 is going to be section B of your paper 2 is going to be you've got 3 options. You can either write it's going to be like some kind of imaginative writing, so either descriptive or narrative. Usually they don't put narrative in there, but they might. And then they are going to give you, or you can choose between, they might give you something to do with, it might be an argumentative essay or a discursive essay or something like that. And so they will give you a topic and you write about that. And then the next option you have, so you choose one of the 3. So sometimes in paper 2, people only choose one section. You have to complete section A. And then section B, you choose one question. Okay? In section B, you've got the imaginative writing, it's going to be discursive writing or argumentative writing or something like that. And then your third option is going to be something like a review or a report or something like that. And those essays will be between 600 and 900 words. Okay. That is the one place where word count is very important. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Have you got any questions?
Any questions that I may have will probably be answered by your YouTube video that you post, because during one section of your talking, a Windows update happened. I think it was during your analysis of the AO3 part.
Yeah.
The AO3 part. We missed like 4 minutes of that because of the Windows updates, but I'll rewatch that.
Okay, cool. Anyone else have any questions?
I have no questions, sir.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, cool. I will see you guys tomorrow then.
See you, sir. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Pleasure.